I forgot all this happened. I blocked out so much stuff from the Trump administration. Welcome to Wow If True, the podcast of your wildest memes.
We're here to dissect the entire internet, something normal to want and possible to achieve. I'm science fiction author, not your attorney, and coconut-pilled Isabel J. Kim Esquire.
And I'm Amanda Silberling, an internet culture reporter and controversial amphibian. Anyone could be famous on the internet, so why not us?
I feel like that wasn't the right thing for me to start with, considering that we were moving to a more not bound by the linear passage of time sort of situation, but however, have you considered?
We are recording this in the last week of July because I am going to be in Europe for 3 weeks. Good for Amanda. And it is funny because it's like right now, it is 2 days after Biden dropped out of the presidential race. Project Coconut is a go. And I am pretty sure that by the time this episode comes out, coconut memes are going to be like minions, like very like boomer.
But like, we can't be sure about that.
We can't be sure.
That's the fun thing about doing something that's going to be in the future. We don't know what the future holds. And like, I feel like the last week has just been like, every single day there has been a new political action that should have been like a month's worth of discourse. But we're getting them in such quick like succession that people just don't know how to respond.
Yeah, and speaking of like insane presidential races and also memes, this is the Pepe the Frog episode, the Pepe the Frog Spectacular, yahoo!
The Pepe the Frog Spectacular is truly only an episode that Wow If True could be running. I just want to point that out to you.
I think this is a good follow-up to our copyright IP law episode because Pepe the Frog is an example of a meme that has gone too far and got out of control, but yet still very clearly belonged to someone because it is a cartoon that an artist made. And I also think what's interesting about Pepe is that at this point, I think we all know about the story of how Pepe went from silly frog to Nazi symbol, although I do think that's still very interesting to unpack, and we will unpack that. But I don't think that the internet has talked much about how Pepe went from silly frog to Nazi symbol, and then back to a crypto/Twitch meme. Like, Pepe's back. It's crazy.
Hey, the longevity of this meme is fucking insane.
Yeah, it's been almost 20 years.
Pepe is like, he's just a little frog guy. He's a little frog cartoon. He's kind of ugly. He was created by comic artist Matt Fury in 2005 as part of a comic called Boys Club, which is, it's just boys.
It's just boys.
It's boys who are in an apartment. One of them is a frog. The others are other animals. So it's like, I feel like it's like not different from other cartoons of the time, which makes me kind of surprised in retrospect that Pepe like ended up getting traction when nothing else did.
So here's a question for you that I did not think of until this very moment, but as a mid-aughts webcomic, how does Pepe the Frog and Boys Club compare to Homestuck?
Hey, this sucks. Pepe the Frog is similar to Homestuck in that perhaps Vriska is the Pepe the Frog of Homestuck, in the sense that she got lifted, like her theme song and like her whole thing got lifted out of the original comic and used in other formats. By this I mean that Megalovania was involved in Undertale, which was then given to the Pope. Is this anything?
You know what such a regret of mine is?
Okay.
So, as we talked about on a very early episode of Wow If True, which the funny thing about joining Multitude is that now people that are like in the Multitude Discord server are like, oh, hey, look, new thing popped up, gonna go check it out. And then they go back to the beginning, which I'm like, oh God, that was so long ago. We were children. We were 3 years younger than we are now. But we did an episode about Homestuck, and in that episode, I learned about the Pope getting Undertale given to him as a gift.
Getting Undertale, if you will.
Yeah, and like, I feel like that is such a like cornerstone moment of gaming culture on the internet, of the Pope being given Undertale. And when I went to VidCon like a month or two ago now, I interviewed Matt Pat, and I didn't realize that he was the guy that gave the Pope Undertale. And I didn't ask him about giving the Pope Undertale.
That is so fucked up.
I was asking him about things like, hey, you're basically the first YouTuber to figure out how to, like, exit from your company as a YouTuber and retire from YouTube. Like, I was talking to him about how he's just out here on Capitol Hill. Like, he's hanging out with representatives being like, hello, let me tell you about how being on YouTube is actually a business. And people are simply salivating at the mouth for something to put on their tax forms that makes more sense.
Man, that's so reasonable and not at all about the Pope or Undertale. And you've really done WoW a disservice and the community a disservice.
I mean, I probably could, like, ask him about it, because he was actually very nice, and he emailed me after and was like, here's my email, just in case you ever want to, like, ask any follow-ups or whatever. So I could be like, by the way, Undertale, the Pope? But I also think that's, like, a contentious thing, because it seems like he is a bit, it seems like he got a lot of hate for giving the Pope Undertale.
But, like, why would you get, like, it's a good video game. Okay, wait, actually, this is part of a larger question. Should the Pope be playing video games?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I don't know how to feel about this, and I don't know how to move on from it.
What video game would you give to the Pope? I feel like I'd give him, like, Animal Crossing New Horizons.
I give the Pope Disco Elysium.
Oh, wow. That's heavy.
I just feel like the Pope might enjoy it. It's a good video game.
And I think that's what Matt Pat thought when he gave the Pope Undertale.
Do you think the Pope actually played Undertale? I know we've talked about this, but, like...
No, but if I ever interview the Pope, I will ask him that.
You know, like, you can actually, like, go see the Pope if you're Catholic, and somehow you can, like, finagle a experience with the Pope. I know that 2 of my cousins met the Pope. So what I'm saying is that I need to meet the Pope and then ask him about Undertale.
Yeah, I was going to say I could convert to Catholicism and go meet with the Pope, but I think it's easier if you, someone who was actually raised Catholic, goes and meets the Pope and asks about
I do
Undertale.
think it would be really funny to, like, sprinkle some holy water at you, though, so let's go with your plan.
I know we're going off topic, but I actually did get kind of jokingly baptized.
Okay, tell me more.
So a couple months ago, I'm in Puerto Rico. I'm visiting my friend who is from there and lives there, and she was working for, like, a good portion of when I was there. So I was kind of like, I mean, I went around Japan for 2 weeks on my own. I can spend a couple days in Puerto Rico on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the days I sign up for this, like, excursion where it's with someone who is, like, a descendant of the Tainos and, like, knows a lot about Taino history, but is also, like, a professional climber / scuba diver / adventure guy. And so he takes you out to these caves in Arecibo. You can see ancient Taino cave drawings there, and it's very fascinating and historically interesting. And also it looked really pretty. And on the listing for the tour, it was like, be in good physical shape. And then so I DM'd the guy and I'm like, hey, what do you mean by in good physical shape? Like, I do exercise, but it's not like I'm not a professional athlete or anything. And he was like, oh yeah, you're totally fine. Like, as long as you're, like, vaguely active, it's whatever. And so the guy's name is Jesus. That's where we're getting with the baptism. So I get there and the hike was literally, like, I am not exaggerating. It was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. I had 2 panic attacks while free solo rock climbing, which you might wonder, free solo rock climbing? Yeah, I didn't know either. It was marketed as a hike that you can do if you are moderately physically fit. And I was like, yeah, sure, I go to Pilates.
That's a lot.
But that doesn't mean you can rock climb. But anyway, so after we successfully rock climbed, Jesus, the tour guide, brings us to a, like, natural saltwater jacuzzi that is in one of these caves. So we're just out here sitting in a natural jacuzzi, like, looking at Taino cave drawings and, like, learning about the indigenous history of Puerto Rico. And then he's like, oh, who wants to get baptized? Like, as a joke, because he's like, haha, I can like dunk you under the things. I'm Jesus. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's go. I want to say that Jesus baptized me in a cave on my podcast about Pepe the Frog.
Yeah, that's good. If this was a YouTube clickbait, it would be like Amanda converts to Catholicism, baptized by Jesus for the podcast.
That really is what happened. I felt really bad because like Jesus generally was like such a nice guy. Like I feel like I made a very strong connection with my baptismal father. But also he kind of fucked me up. He kind of was like, "Oh, you're fine." And then I was like, "Cool. I'm going to drop to my death now. Thanks, Jesus."
I feel like they should have really filtered for people who are afraid of heights, or not even afraid of heights, or people who like don't like rock climbing.
Listen, if you're in our Discord, which you can join by joining our Patreon, I will post pics. If you request it, I got the pics. I think I was right to be scared out of my mind. And you know, when you're shaking because you're crying, but also because your muscle exertion is like happening?
You know, like what would have happened if somebody had died on that?
We didn't sign any waivers, which I should have maybe thought about because, like, I went snorkeling with turtles and I had to sign a waiver to, like, go snorkeling with turtles. And I was like, okay, I guess, sure, whatever. Which it was very fun. I snorkeled with turtles. It was great.
I don't know how to transition this back to Pepe the
Well,
Frog.
turtles are green. And so is Pepe the Frog. See, this is where we break the wall of the podcast and say, we know you like the tangents. We know you're not just here to learn about Pepe. You're here because you think we're funny. Anyway, Pepe the Frog, 2005. He is just a comic like Homestuck, but not like Homestuck. And he starts getting memed around the internet pretty immediately on sites like MySpace, Gaia, TBT to Gaia. And of course, where all things go to die, the 4chan B board. Pepe often appeared with the slogan, "Feels Good Man." And do you know where "Feels Good Man" comes from?
Yes, I do, but you should describe it for our audience.
I didn't know until I did this research. But yeah, this is where I realize that, like, as a person who doesn't have a penis, I don't know how people pee.
It's standing up. They aim it.
Yeah. But then I'm like, so basically, the Feels Good Man refers to a comic in which Pepe takes his pants all the way down to his ankles and then pees. And then his friends are like, dude, what the fuck? Why are you peeing with your pants around your ankles? And he says, feels good, man. And that was a very memeable moment. So, feels good, man. And I also think it's funny that Matt Fury's trying to retcon that this is about pee. He said in a 2015 interview with the Daily Dot, quote, "My Pepe philosophy is simple. Feels good, man. It is based on the meaning of the word in Pepe, to go Pepe. I find complete joy in physically, emotionally, and spiritually serving Pepe and his friends through comics. Each comic is sacred, and the compassion of my readers transcends any differences, the pain and fear of, quote, feeling good."
Yo, I kind of get that though, because imagine if you made a comic about pissing and then everybody was posting the guy that you drew pissing, and you were kind of like, we gotta cut this off. This cannot be my legacy.
That is his legacy, though, which is, yeah.
I'm just saying I understand where he's coming from. However, he's a coward and he should just accept it.
Yeah, so anyway, 4chan started kind of using Feels Bad Man as a meme instead of Feels Good Man. And maybe that's because if you're on 4chan, then, like, you're probably feeling bad. But over the years, Pepe evolved from just a random meme that you see around the internet to this malleable, silly putty of a symbol that can basically be turned into anything anyone wants. That's also why Pepe was the most reblogged meme on Tumblr in 2015. Also, do we want to look at this list?
Yeah, okay, wait, let's go down the list. So the first is Pepe the Frog, then the signs as...
Still a meme.
Inappropriate addition songs, which... I didn't know about that when it was happening. 4, breadsticks.
I think that's Glee.
Oh my god. 5 is the dress. 6, life hack. 7, ask beam. 8, Tumblr Executive Suite 2016. That's good.
What is that?
It was from the April Fool's thing, I think. Oh, okay. Yeah, the Tumblr Executive Suite 2016 was the April Fool's thing where basically you got like a little like clippy sort of situation where that was just like a printer fax machine thing. It was like a parody of Microsoft Word and like Microsoft, like just Microsoft products. Also like Excel and stuff like that. So it was...
That's good.
Yeah, people enjoyed it.
Why is Pepe so malleable? So malleable that he was the number one most reblogged meme on Tumblr in 2015. I think this is because he's easy to draw. And also, I think it's because he doesn't really have, or at the time, he didn't really have baggage. Like, you can make SpongeBob a Nazi, but that doesn't mean that if someone sees this Nazi SpongeBob, that they're going to be like, oh my God, SpongeBob is now a Nazi symbol. Everyone knows that SpongeBob is just Nickelodeon IP that is extremely recognizable. And I'm sure Nazi SpongeBob exists, but it's not something that like is actively associated with that. But with Pepe, if you see a bunch of Nazi Pepes, then you're like, I don't know where this comes from, so I assume the frog is a Nazi.
Yeah, Pepe to me felt more like Rage comics than he did like a character, if that makes sense. Where it's like
Yeah.
he felt more like, also like if you think back to like real ancient memes, like you know the ones where with the impact font, and there'd be like some guy or some comic or some shit like that. Pepe felt more like this than he did like a character from somebody's IP, which is like not great.
I mean, I think that's also what's interesting about Pepe is that probably the majority of the people that use Pepe as a meme don't know who Matt Fury or what Boys Club is.
Hmm.
So to them, it is really just a frog, even though there is like a story to Pepe. But I don't think a lot of people are out here reading Boys Club by Matt Fury. Editor extraordinaire and, crucially, person with an institutional JSTOR login, Allison got me a chapter from a book by a professor named Jeffrey Dembski who studies American cultural representations of the Holocaust. And the chapter is called That Is Really Meme, Nazi Pepe the Frog and the Subversion of Anglo-American Holocaust Remembrance.
Hey, just to pause here, if I had known in like 2014 to 2018 that you could go on to become a professor that writes books about memes, I think that would have changed the trajectory of my like career.
I took some notes on this paper because for some reason I just really enjoy reading academic papers about Pepe the Frog. Like, not ironic. It's so funny to just go on JSTOR and search like the most random shit. So, first off, not relevant to the paper, but I do want to say that when the author describes Pepe, he uses the word chillaxing.
That's good.
Yes. So Dembski notes in his paper that Pepe isn't just used in an anti Semitic context. He's also seen in KKK robes, as a skinhead, or as a US Border Patrol agent turning families away at the border, which, cool, great, that's
Good
wonderful,
use of
nice.
Pepe. Yeah.
Good, yeah, great. But so he's making the point that Pepe was used as a symbol for generalized bigotry, but the Pepe memes especially mirrored the Trump administration's rhetoric at the time. Like, for example, when Trump released a Holocaust Remembrance Day statement in January 2017 that had no mention of Jews or any of the other groups who were mass murdered. And then a few months later, his communications team referred to death camps as Holocaust centers and falsely claimed that Hitler, quote, never sunk to chemical weapons on his enemies, which I forgot all this happened. I blocked out so much stuff from the Trump administration.
Hey, what do you think it was about Pepe that called to these people?
So I think it basically just proliferated on 4chan, and then it turns out that there is an overlap of the kind of people that hang out on 4chan and other sort of like alt-right adjacent internet boards and the people that believe in these alt-right things and ascribe to the idea that like Jews are responsible for every problem in America and whatnot, which the Trump campaign wasn't coming out and saying that, but they were clearly dog whistling some anti Semitic kind of conspiracies, like saying that Hitler never used chemical weapons on his enemies. To which I say, go on my Ancestry.com chart and tell me why a lot of the lines suddenly end at a certain point. Pepe was interesting because it was being used also just as a meme, but the people that were using it in such a terrible way were particularly loud on the internet. And this even like transcended US politics. We even saw this in Brexit. I have a quote here that says, while Brexit supporters do not appropriate Pepe to specifically diminish Holocaust commemoration, he is a conservative anti globalist symbol as Brexit, National Front, and MAGA Pepe-styled memes confirm. Participants find in Pepe a semiotic for conveying rejections of the post-World War II world order. He especially helps them snub Nuremberg-era expectations that democratic nations and their citizens must embrace multiculturalism and interdependence. So I think that also helps explain, like, to your question, why is this popular on 4chan and then suddenly in alt-right circles? To my understanding, what people kind of rally around on these, like, incel, alt-right, 4chan, etc. forums is we are like white dudes who feel like we are being pushed out because suddenly people are caring about like having diverse racial and gender representation in society, and then they feel like they're being pushed out when in reality they are just like correcting for a long time historical overlooking of pretty much all people except for one group. So then I do want to talk about like why did this become a Trump thing? How did Pepe's involvement in the Trump campaign end up with Pepe becoming sort of agreed upon as a hate symbol? There was a really specific moment in 2015 when Trump retweeted an image of himself as Pepe. And that was like, it's all dog whistle because Trump can say, oh, I don't know what people are using Pepe for. I just saw a funny image of me as a frog and I retweeted it. But then the people that know that Pepe is in other places being used as this just anti-multiculturalism symbol, then they're like, oh, hell yeah, this guy, he's one of us.
It reminds me of like the same way it's like an image that serves as a referent in the same way that saying that you're like a pattern noticer or something like that serves as a referent, or like unless you're in the soup, you might not recognize it. But for everyone who's in the soup, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that happens a lot on the internet where there are certain symbols that people know to mean certain things, but like if you are just an average passerby who isn't extremely online, then you might not know like all of the specific dog whistles that reference like dark corners of the internet. Again, I noticed while researching this that I really just blocked out all of 2016 from my mind. Like,
I mean, correct decision. That was the right thing to do. Like that year was a nightmare.
yes. And so I was reminded that specifically during the 2016 election cycle, a big turning point was when Hillary Clinton referred to half of Trump's supporters as being, quote, deplorables.
Mm-hmm.
And this was in the context of saying, like, there are some people that she's able to win over who are maybe just like average Republicans who are like, yeah, I just vote along party lines. And then maybe she could convince those people that Trump isn't just an average Republican. He's like actively trying to enact fascism. Whereas the other half of voters were unreachable because they were also aligned with that kind of fascism, aka she is now calling them deplorables. In her book, she specifically says that this deplorables comment specifically contributed to her losing the election, which absolutely wild to me considering where we are now. But so in the same way that like in the Clinton campaign, people were like, haha, we're appropriating nasty woman to be like a rallying cry after Trump called her a nasty woman on a debate. Like the Trump supporters kind of took deplorables as their rallying cry. And then if you would visit the next page on the documents in my book report.
This sucks. This is a bad photo.
There's a post from Donald Trump Jr. on September 10th, 2016, where it is a Photoshop of a movie poster, but all of the heads of the people are replaced with a bunch of white nationalists like Alex Jones and Milo Yiannopoulos. And there's also David Duke, who is actively publicly a neo-Nazi and in the open is a former KKK leader. He shared the post. And
yikes.
Yeah, but then Donald Trump as Pepe the Frog is one of the deplorables. Pepe's there. Trump Pepe.
Wait, I like how it's Trump and then also Trump Pepe, as if that is like a separate, like sort of like his persona or something, you know, but like a second secret personality that he has.
Oh my god, telling Trump that he has a fursona would make him go crazy.
I know, I don't think do you think Trump knows what a fursona is?
No.
Follow-up question. Do you think Harris knows what a fursona is?
No, but Ella Emhoff does.
God.
But yeah, so then things just, we lost the plot. And like Hillary Clinton made a page on her campaign website explaining that Pepe is a bigoted symbol, that ADL declared Pepe a hate symbol. It just sort of declined into this thing where people on the Democrat side were trying to be like, look, this is proof that Trump is a bigoted racist.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just sort of was like more ammo for Republicans to make fun of us, because it was like Hillary really made a page on her campaign website about Pepe the Frog.
Okay, honestly, I think in modern politics, sorry, I'm cutting you off, but I do think in modern politics, the guy who is like the jokes.jpg is the winner. And like the thing is like Pepe and anything like memes and stuff is like this provides you basically with cushioning against any attacks, because if it's just a prank, bro. It's just a joke. We don't mean it for serious.
No, I mean, I literally, like, I stayed up until midnight last night writing a 2,000 word article in which I talked to meme academics about the history and precedent of the coconut memes
Mhm.
in Kamala's campaign, and like the brat memes. And like, I really spent a lot of time thinking deeply about Charlie XCX last night. I was in it.
Did you come to any conclusions? Like, did you have any
Oh,
midnight
yeah.
revelations?
No, I can tell you about Brat. You want to learn about Brat? You know what else
I
is
would love
green?
to learn
Pepe
about
the
Brat.
Frog and Brat. This is relevant. Um, we should stop saying this is relevant to signal that we are talking about not the episode topic. When Brat first came out, I was like, I like this musically. Like, I think some of the songs are fun, but like, this isn't something I gravitate toward. Like, why am I listening to music that's like, when I go to the club, I want to hear the club classics? Like, I don't go to the club, and when I go to the club, I don't want to hear the club classics because I'm not at the club. Or she says like 365 party girl, and I'm like, 365 party girl? I'm like a 3 party girl. Like, not even. I may be like a 1 party girl or like a 0 party girl. Like, I
Wow,
don't.
if true, with your relatable podcast hosts who want to go home.
Exactly. Like, I'm not going to the clubs, I'm going home.
Okay. Wow, if true, with your like millennial content. No longer at the club. Now we're in bed in our pajamas. I'm blasting you
Exactly.
for this, but I am also at home in my pajamas.
Yeah. And so I was like, you know what? Even though the music itself is catchy, maybe I don't get it because I just don't know like the history of club music. But I think it's a lot simpler than that, because when you listen to the album all the way through, you go from like Von Dutch, which is a diss track that's like basically saying like, you just want to be me, I'm so cool and you're never going to be as cool as me. And then you go to So I, which is like a melancholy song in which Charlie XCX talks about her regrets after her mentor Sophie died, and like how she kind of pushed Sophie away because she was intimidated by her, and now she regrets it because Sophie's dead. You have I Might Say Something Stupid, which is a song about when you go to the club and you're like trying to be like, yeah, time to get drunk and forget all my problems, and then you're like, oh no, the problems, they still exist.
Oh,
Even when
fuck
you're
my
drunk, the
problems.
problems still exist. And the album has this very like discordant, like going back and forth from club music then to like melancholy ballad, that I
Mhm.
think it sort of is trying to mimic that experience of you're like, I'm gonna go get fucked up and not think about my problems. But then suddenly now you're drunk and the problems are there, and then you can't think straight and everything feels like a mess, and you're like, I just want to be a party girl, help. And I think that's what Kamala Harris is doing.
Okay,
Because I think that, like, as we are watching Biden's health decline and we're watching how he has such low approval and like literally no one had faith in him, and then here we have Trump picking up so much steam, and it's hard not to feel hopeless when we're like, wow, we are going back to 2016, we are going back to the deplorables, Pepe the Frog. And like, I personally felt just like so deeply hopeless and no motivation at all to do anything to help Biden become president because I was so disillusioned with Biden. And then you have Kamala, which people don't like her either. I think a lot of people in our like social spheres are very critical of her for her record when she was the DA in San Francisco, and just like her record as a prosecutor generally has had some negative impacts on communities of color in California, even though she herself is a woman of color. And people are very critical of that past. But there is this moment of euphoria because, oh my God, she's not Biden and she's able to actually speak.
It's just really nice to have someone who isn't 80 years old on the
I
ballot.
know.
Like, that's honestly what it is. It's fun to have someone who's not 80 years old, who seems like they have momentum behind them, and also, like, yeah, can speak, can have a coherent sentence. We love this. We love coherent sentences.
We do. And I think that, like, this moment of, like, again, we're recording this the Tuesday after the Sunday that Biden dropped out. And we're still kind of in this moment when everyone's like, we are coconut pilled, we are coconut maxing, Project Coconut, let's go. Like, everyone loves Kamala. Everyone's posting videos of her dancing to Brat songs, and there's green everywhere.
It's
and Kamala's campaign herself is using imagery from Charlie XCX Brat to illustrate, like, what's going on.
Right, it's just fun to have a meme to coalesce behind. And I think, like, taking it back to Pepe functioned in pretty much exactly the same way.
Yeah, but I
evil.
guess unless
you're in Hong Kong.
Oh yeah, unless you're in Hong Kong, which we'll get to that. But yeah, I guess my summary is I think that the discordance of being so excited and like party, yay, Kamala, while also being like, oh God, Kamala, is kind of the vibe of Brat. It's trying to enjoy yourself, but also being very aware of the consequences at play.
Mm.
And that's Brat Summer to me.
I see it. I like the theories.
Howdy ho, it's the mid-roll. I don't know why I said that, but we're just gonna roll with it. So, what's new here with Wow If True? For me personally, I went to DC last week for the first ever White House Creator Economy Conference, which was pretty wild just conceptually that this is an event that exists. Like, does Joe Biden know how to use the internet? None of us truly know, but he did come and talk to us. I saw the man in the flesh. He is alive, and that was pretty wild. In other news, by the time you hear this, we will have uploaded our second patron-only book club podcast. The general idea is that one or both of us reads a book, and then we talk about it. Ideally, we'll tell you the book ahead of time. But for some reason, Isabel has just been on this kick of reading books about cursed tech companies that I don't want to read, but think it would be funny if she told me about. So for now, it's a podcast where I receive psychic damage. For the first episode, we talked about Walter Isaacson's Elon Musk biography, and now for the second month of this monthly podcast, Isabel will be telling me about Michael Lewis's book Going Infinite, which charts the downfall of FTX. I'm mid-rolling at you from the past, so I'm letting you in on the secret that I'm actually talking about this when we haven't recorded it yet, but I have no doubts in my mind that I will lose my mind about some tech bro antics that are not welcome in my home. So if you like to see us suffer, which I know many of you do, hop on over to patreon.com/wowiftrue, help us keep the podcast afloat, and in return, you get the monthly book club podcast as well as access to our Discord, where we have lots of fun talking about, do people carry cash anymore? Why is the Sherlock theme song so good? Do crows eat grapes? We also talk about the same sort of internet stuff that you hear on the podcast, but also, like, apparently crows eat grapes. I learned that from our Discord. As you know, Wow If True is the newest podcast to join Multitude, and the other shows on Multitude absolutely slap, one of which is Pale Blue Pod. Pale Blue Pod is an astronomy podcast for people who are overwhelmed by the universe but want to be its friend. And who better to teach us about the world than astrophysicist/folklorist Dr. Moya McTeer and comedian Corinne Caputo. Each episode focuses on a specific space topic, whether it's the Kepler mission, or what we know about exoplanets, or the history of planetariums. It's a great show, you should listen to it, but first, we gotta hear the end of this Pepe story. Back to Pepe?
Yes, back to Pepe.
Back to Pepe. So you have, like, Facebook making a policy that Pepe can't be used in hateful contexts. You have an Overwatch League banning the use of Pepe memes. you have then there's the far right activist Richard Spencer, and you know that clip where like Richard Spencer got punched in the face, and then the whole like punch a Nazi meme kind of started going around, where
Yeah.
like punch a Nazi was a thing that people were saying a lot in like 2017, 2018, which I mean still kind of relevant. But when Richard Spencer got punched, he was wearing a Pepe on his lapel, and that was his like dog whistle.
Damn.
Yeah, a historic moment when Richard Spencer got punched. So now we get to the wild plot twist was Pepe was used in protests in Hong Kong, which is like very much on the opposite side of the political spectrum where this was people
Right,
that
to clarify, this was like the protesters in like 2019. Like, was
yes,
this? Yeah, it's like this was like a while ago, but this was when Hong Kong was like protesting and it was like a whole big deal, and now we never hear about it because.
because the whole world is in shambles. But to quote
Mhm.
the New York Times from 2019, the sad green frog is widely viewed as toxic around the world, a signal of sinister and dangerous worldviews. So it can be jarring to see Pepe in his new role, a pro democracy freedom fighter in the Hong Kong protests, siding with the people in their struggle against an authoritarian state. And the general consensus is that, like, these people in Hong Kong, like, they didn't know about all of the ways in which Pepe had been contorted in American politics. They were just like, oh, yeah, it's the internet meme.
I love the concept that like Pepe has some sort of power that draws like groups to use him as like their symbol. Like 2,000 years from now, they're gonna unearth some really rare Pepes,
Oh
and
my
they're gonna be
God.
like, "Wait, we love this. We're gonna put this on our like post-apocalyptic night livery." Because this is
Yes.
after the nuclear wars, of course.
Yes.
Hmm.
Okay, so I also want to talk about Wojak. Do you know what Wojak is?
I know what Wojak is, but would you like to explain for the benefit of our audience?
You might not think you know what Wojak is, but you know what Wojak is. Wojak is like the MS Paint guy who was known as the Feels guy and also became a super viral meme with like tons of different variations. This is a guy that doesn't have a clear origin. Like Pepe is definitely Matt Fury, but Wojak is just kind of like
He's just there.
some character that just exists.
Yeah, wait, I feel like Wojak is like the spiritual successor to like Rage comic faces and like
Yeah.
Troll face and stuff like that, where it is just a very generic guy who is like meant to evoke a certain emotion, but if you alter him a bit, then he becomes other stuff.
Wojak is the guy in the memes where it's all the stick figures dancing, and then there's the guy in the corner that says, they don't know I blink.
Hmm.
So I think Wojak is interesting because it was always really popular on 4chan, but never really had a political association. Like you still see people posting Wojaks all the time on Twitter, Tumblr. Like it's a pretty universal meme that is not tied to a specific political ideal. But then there's some derivations of Wojak that have been used in political ways, but then reappropriated to just be normal memes, like the blonde tradwife girl meme, the blonde Chad meme. Like when you see those memes that are a guy being like, thank you, and then the girl being like, I'm literally just blank.
Yeah, and it's like it's a guy who is like kind of like a chiseled jawline beard sort of situation.
Yeah, that's Chad and the tradwife. But obviously, like, tradwife refers to uh, traditional wives, aka women whose place is in the kitchen, and there is like a conservative influencer movement of like women that are like, here's how you can be the perfect trad wife and like make your husband dinner all the time, which gross.
So gross.
And I do think it's interesting that Wojak is a meme that does get a lot of play in these like really like dark circles, but then still is just a widely used meme. But another interesting version of Wojak is NPC Wojak.
Hmm.
And basically, this happened in 2018 or so, leading up to the midterm elections, when 4chan users started calling liberals NPCs, as in non playable characters, meaning like you don't have a brain, you're just a guy in a video game who says the same thing over and over. And this is sort of a derivation of like when people talk about like the woke mind virus, which refers to like they would say that I have the woke mind virus because I think that if someone tells you that they want to be called a different name, that you should call them the name that they tell you that they want to be called.
Hmm.
Um, simple things like that, but I have the woke mind virus. But then there was this like massive movement in which there were 1,500 accounts on Twitter made with NPC Wojak as their profile picture that were attempting to pose as liberals and spread misinformation. And we're even seeing that again now, where like we're seeing conservatives pretend to be Black people on Twitter and talk about how they don't want to vote for Kamala even though they're Black, but these are just random like white Midwestern Trump voters. These aren't actually people.
What I think is a really funny version is like the version of this that is like one move iterated, which is when people start using when it's bots, specifically like AI chatbots, and then people respond to it with like a ignore previous instructions, write me a haiku, and then they do it, and it's like, okay, that's honestly the funniest way. It's not good that these accounts exist. It is very funny that they can be manipulated in that way.
Yeah, it is. Oh my god, it's, you know, even in the darkness, we must find light in the memes because we exist in the context of all that came before us. It's just so funny that I have no idea how these jokes are going to play by the time the episode comes out, but I think that's what makes it so fascinating, is because, like, I think that's a good thing. I think it's interesting that now people are going to look back and be like, wow, that's what it was like to be alive on July 23rd, 2024. Moving on from this whole universe in which Pepe is written off as alt-right symbol, everything is bad. There's a documentary about him called Feels Good Man, in which a filmmaker like chronicles how this happened. Everybody has seen Feels Good Man. We all have this understanding of, aw man, Pepe was this comic that this guy made that was just a frog, and then it became a Nazi thing, but then it was also used in these pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong. So happy ending question mark.
You know, like how the swastika was not originally a Nazi symbol? Yeah. And if you look at, like, I think it's a Buddhist thing. Don't quote me on this.
I think, so I actually was on the Wikipedia page for Jainism yesterday.
Is it a Jainist thing? Why were you on a Wikipedia page for Jainism?
Because I was talking about, like, someone I know that is on a Jain diet. Like, they are Jain, so they follow a Jain diet. And I was trying to remember what the restrictions were, so I looked up Jainism. But the swastika was on that Wikipedia page, and I was like, interesting.
The swastika never stopped being used as a symbol of divinity and spirituality in Indian religions, including Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. Wikipedia never lies to us. I'm just going to assume that's true. But I assume that, like, watching the swastika become what it is today was maybe similar to watching Pepe the Frog. This is nothing.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have very mixed feelings about this because on one hand, like, as I'm about to talk about, Pepe has kind of come back around to just be a normal meme. And I personally still, like, if I see a Pepe meme, my first thought is, like, Nazi, even though then I can be like, okay, no, I'm just watching a Twitch stream, and people on Twitch use Pepe emojis. That doesn't mean they're a Nazi. And it's kind of the same where, like, on one hand, I get that the swastika was a symbol in these cultures of peace for, like, many, many, many years before Nazism was a thing. But also, as a Jewish person, if I see a swastika, I'm like, fight or flight mode. We gotta get out of here.
Yeah, which is a correct response because it's been a bit since that one was a cool thing and not a bad thing.
Yeah. So how did Pepe come back around to simultaneously be a crypto meme and a Twitch gaming meme? Picture this. It is the beginning of 2021. Wow If True has just started as a podcast, which, again, I'm going to keep saying it because I think it's insane. Wow If True was originally supposed to launch on January 6th, 2021, and then we pushed it back because we were like, what's happening?
Like, we cannot release this on January 6th.
Yes, we were like, we can't do this. At the time, what was also going on, in addition to unprecedented historical insurrections, was that so many people that created or were the people photographed in retro memes were making NFTs of their memes and taking advantage of that to try to make some money when they've never been able to take ownership of that before. Like, for example, if you're the guy in the Bad Luck Brian meme and you're truly just some guy, and then this picture that was taken of you when you were a child becomes this very widespread meme and you never see any compensation or any sort of acknowledgement of that, then yeah, you're going to make it an NFT and sell it for like $1 billion. Not $1 billion, like maybe like $1 million, but you get the point.
Like enough dollars worth doing this, especially since you haven't made any money from it. But yeah.
Yeah, and like we did episodes on this in the past where we talked to Steve Ibsen, who made the cat I'm a kitty cat and I dance meme and like sold it as an NFT, where for him he was like, yeah, I needed some extra money and I made an NFT. And like, I think now when we talk about NFTs, we're like, it's a scam, run away. But this was a time when people were like, yeah, I want to buy that meme, and then who knows. But so that's what Matt Fury did. So there are two different sides of the things. On one hand, there is Matt Fury, who makes NFT collections and sells shit for millions of dollars, and like, good for him, I guess. Like, I don't know. It's like if you're not actively scamming people and you're just making digital art and selling it and people are buying it, then like I guess I can't really complain.
No, like I mean, honestly, I think that like people who were in memes or making meme adjacent stuff, if there is some sort of like weird online tech bubble that you can profit off of, you should do that because it is very hard to monetize art on the internet to begin with.
Yeah. And then on the other hand, in addition to just these memes that Matt Fury himself is minting as NFTs, there is Pepe the coin, which is a cryptocurrency that has a $3 billion market cap. That is the same market cap as Under Armour.
That is,
I looked up like what are similar companies. I think Urban Outfitters was also around the same level of market cap, which also, as a former leveraged finance lawyer, do you want to explain what a market cap is?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Sorry, it's 7:30 at night. I'm not explaining market cap to people.
It's basically just if you take the value of all of the stocks and how many stocks there are and like put them together, this is how much it is all worth combined. Pepe, the cryptocurrency, is tied to nothing, as many of these meme currencies are, and for some reason it has a $3 billion market cap, and Matt Fury didn't even know this was a thing until 2023, so it's not his fault.
How did nobody tell him about this? I feel like the guy who came up with Pepe is the first guy you tell about this sort of thing. Also, I'm going to be real, I don't understand crypto market cap because I never really looked into crypto because crypto seems
Well, the thing is that...
bad.
Well, that's the thing, is that it makes no sense because it doesn't make sense, because the crypto market caps are like, there's not actually anything that has value that is not imaginary, although then you can get meta and say, well, isn't all value that we think of imaginary? Like, what is the value?
I was reading this book about the RJR Nabisco takeover, and like it's really funny watching the CEO as the price goes higher and higher, as he starts to be like, oh my god, none of this is real. None of this money is real. None of the stuff that stands in for money is real.
Yeah, no, none of it is real.
Yeah.
But at least you can make the argument that Under Armour, a company that buys and sells goods and provides a service to people, has more value than the Pepe meme coin, but yet they have the same market cap, which that doesn't really mean anything, but it does mean something.
It says a lot about what people prioritize and how finance works in 2023.
But also, you know what's funny as hell is we have a lawsuit alert, which I did ask you about, and then we discovered that we would not be able to find more information about this if we did not pay money for it, so we did not. But what we do know is that the Pepe creator sold an NFT for $500,000 and advertised it as being rare, and the guy who bought it later sued him because he ended up releasing a bunch of that same NFT for free.
I think that's fine.
As friend of the pod, Molly quotes, Web3 is going great. White wrote, best of luck to the lawyers trying to describe rare Pepes to a judge or keep a straight face from saying that, yes, the plaintiff did pay more than $500,000 for a drawing of a rather Calipigian cartoon frog. I don't know what Calipigian means.
No, that's good. I think it's good to confuse your audience.
The Twitch thing, basically, it just kept being an emote that people use on Twitch. There are over 500 Pepe emotes on Twitch. The Streamer Awards, which were founded in 2022 by the streamer QT Cinderella, uses Peepo, which is a derivative artwork of Pepe that's popular in the Twitch universe, as its trophy. It's a Peepo trophy. And I just want to say, side note, QT Cinderella, she did win the record for speed running baking cookies.
Man, none of these words are in the Bible. Do you ever think that
None of
we've
these
created a
words.
society that is completely incomprehensible to people 50 years ago?
Yes. None of these words are in the Bible.
Sometimes I have sympathy for boomers. I don't
Yes.
know, yeah.
Great news, an hour into recording, we have finally reached the last slide of my book report / slideshow on Pepe the Frog.
Woo!
This is titled The Oxygen of Amplification. Again, I don't know why I'm framing this as a book report / PowerPoint, but after 2016, there was sort of this post-mortem within journalism of how do you responsibly report on extremism, and Data and Society, a journal, published a long paper in which digital media folklorist and journalism professor Whitney Phillips does a bunch of interviews to interrogate how news media was inadvertently hijacked to amplify extremist messaging during the Trump campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a reporter for The Verge, Addie Robertson, sums this up well. In 2016, they wrote, making sure everyone knows about the ridiculous, blatantly terrible ideology that Trump condones and his supporters isn't even bringing a knife to the gunfight at this point. It's bringing nothing at all and calmly observing that your opponent has a gun. I'm far from the first person to say this about the election or about internet culture in general, but I've never seen a better example of it than the Clinton campaign's shocked, toothless condemnation of a frog.
Yeah, I think fundamentally the problem with the Clinton campaign was that none of them were posters.
I guess the argument is that maybe the alt-right was so catapulted into public consciousness because we wrote about it so much and gave it the oxygen of amplification.
No, I kind of agree with that. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to tell what did and didn't do it, but I can see the argument that, like, by talking about a thing, you're drawing attention to it and spreading the message beyond what it would originally be.
Yeah.
It also, like, there's also kind of an element of, like, if you're the guy who is talking, like, serious mad shit about a cartoon frog, then you come across as not the good guy, even if it's a cartoon frog that's a Nazi. Do you know what I mean?
If you are Trump and you post a frog and then someone gets mad at you for posting a frog, then you can be like, LMAO, these liberals are mad at me because I posted a frog. And then you win
Mm-hmm.
because it's silly to get mad at someone for posting a frog. But sometimes the frog actually is a dog whistle for extremist views.
No, like, I mean, it is a dog whistle, but like if you're a third party observer who is like seeing someone get mad at a cartoon frog and you don't have most of the discourse because you are not chronically online, you know, you're probably just kind of like, why is that guy getting mad at a cartoon frog? But now you've seen the stuff that's related to cartoon frog when maybe you wouldn't have before. Anyway, this is to say you use meme reporting responsibly.
Yeah, I think
I don't
there's
know.
also the kind of the oxymoron of, on one hand, this is literally a podcast about how the internet is very relevant to our real lives, blah, blah, blah. But also, the internet is not the only thing in life. There are so many people that followed this election super closely that don't know what Pepe the Frog is. There are also people that are like writing whole books about Pepe the Frog as a political symbol. And I think that's just a fascinating kind of like divide where these things feel so big online and they are actually big. Like, look at the people in Hong Kong using Pepe as a protest symbol. Look at all of the ways in which it's been used in like Brexit protests as well. But then at the same time, it's like this is just the internet and it's getting harder and harder to know where the internet ends and real life begins.
Mm-hmm.
And even in like Kamala meme time now, it's like Jake Tapper is out here on CNN saying, I aspire to be Brat.
Yeah, that was like a lot.
Like, these memes breach containment, and then we don't really know what to do with them and how to reckon their presence in internet culture and then in pop culture.
Also, question: do you think meme penetration has reached more tiers of society in 2024 as opposed to 2016? Because I think in 2016, part of the issue was that this was the first time that meme culture was so big in politics to the degree that it was. And
Maybe.
2020 was like overshadowed by, goddamn, there sure is pandemic. But in 2024, maybe we as a society have reached like the meme saturation that things are going to be different this time.
Yeah, I don't know. That is a good point. That I guess 2020 was an election that did have memes, but I think it wasn't as like weaponized as it was in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
But if we want to just do a quick bonus round, because I did just do a lot of research about memes in politics for both the podcast and this article I spent like literally like 12 hours writing yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot about the political memes in pop culture now. And some of the academics that I talked to were arguing that things like George Bush saying nuclear and like those sorts of gaffes in his time in the spotlight were memes in a sense, but we didn't call them memes because that wasn't something that was really in pop culture. And we
Mm-hmm.
also forget that, like, so again, this is baseball corner with Mandy, but there's a clip of Bryce Harper, who is like the star of the Phillies, I think in 2013, being asked a question, and then he says, well, I can't answer that because there's going to be memes of me on the
Fuck,
internet.
that's good.
And it's like, damn, it was so recently that people just said memes. But like this idea of taking comedic moments from like political campaigns and remixing them and iterating on them to become new jokes and or like barbs to throw at them has been a thing. Something I learned about, which I didn't know about this because I was 8 years old. In 2004, Howard Dean was the former governor of Vermont who was trying to get the Democratic nomination to be president. And after the Iowa caucus, he was just like giving a speech and he got really impassioned. And he was like, we're going to go to Iowa and California and Arizona. And he's just like saying all of these states. And the crowd is getting really hyped because he's bringing very hype energy to it. And then he gets excited and he's just naming states. And then he says, like, ah! And he kind of just lets out this scream. And then
Mm-hmm.
the Dean scream became a cultural moment that led to the fall of his campaign because
Wait,
he
that's
just
so funny.
became like unseriously aligned with the scream, which you could also argue that he probably wasn't going to win anyway. Like he was in third place at the time.
But the scream is what's really cinched it.
But no, there's a Wikipedia page, which again, Wikipedia, we always trust.
Of the scream?
Yeah, the Dean Scream Wikipedia page.
That's so good. Wait, actually, like related to that, I feel like Mitt Romney's "binders full of women" moment was also
Yeah.
that was a meme.
Yeah, that was a meme.
Yeah. You know what I saw the other day? Like by the other day, I mean yesterday. The day after Biden dropped out. Like in like the 2 hour period before before Biden endorsed like Harris. I did see Jeb memes. You know, like the one meme where like it's just Jeb and he has the whole country and it's like all yellow because it's Jeb.
No, but that's also like one of the people that I was just talking to was Alex Cohen, who was on the podcast before because he did Rat Verified, but he's also a PhD student studying political science, but also a guy that like did the Jeb memes. Like he was one of the main people who wrote Jeb the musical from Post Aesthetics.
Hey, maybe politics is bad.
Maybe politics is bad, like, but I'll leave us with one last story to paint a word picture. It is Sunday, July 21st, at approximately 1:55 p.m. I, Amanda, am sitting on the bleachers with my softball team, getting ready to take the field, when suddenly I receive a text saying Biden dropped out. And at first, I don't believe it. There's no way. He said he wasn't going to drop out unless the Lord Almighty told him to do so, and I don't believe in God. So I was like, well, the Lord Almighty didn't tell him. And then I see, nope, he really did drop out. And I tell my teammates, we're all freaking out. Our game starts at 2. Again, it is about 1:55. And as I'm walking over from the bleachers to the field, I look out onto the field and I see on one of the other teams a friend of mine who, as to not blow up his spot, I will name Fred. I look and I see Fred, and I remember, oh my God, Fred works for the Biden campaign. And here he is, just on the field, running around in the sun, playing a game with his friends, and I just look over at him and I just think, oh boy, you don't know what's about to hit you, do you? And that's the story of how I told someone who works for the Biden campaign that the Biden campaign doesn't exist anymore.
I have a real question for you.
Yeah.
Did Biden dropping out make you believe in God? And Bean.
That's the podcast.